detectives," she said, "spent over an hour in this room. They paced the floor, they measured the candles, they—" "Mrs. Williams," interrupted Loveday, "I am quite ready to look at the room below." Her manner had changed from gossiping friendliness to that of the business woman hard at work at her profession. Without another word, Mrs. Williams led her way to the little room which had proved itself to be the weak point of the house. They entered it by the door which opened into a passage leading to the back stairs of the house. Loveday found the room exactly what it had been described to her by Mr. Dyer. It needed no second glance at the window to see the ease with which anyone could open it from the outside and swing themselves into the room when once the brass catch had been unfastened. Loveday wasted no time here. In fact, much to Mrs. Williams' surprise and disappointment, she merely walked across the room, in at one door and out at the opposite one, which opened into the large inner hall of the house. Here, however, she paused to ask a question. "Is that chair always placed exactly in that position?" she said, pointing to an oak chair that stood immediately outside the room they had just quitted. The housekeeper answered in the affirmative. It was a warm corner. My lady was particular that everyone who came to the house on messages should have a comfortable place to wait in. "I shall be glad if you will show me up to my room now," said Loveday, a little abruptly, "and will you kindly send up to me a country trade directory, if, that is, you have such a thing in the house." Mrs. Williams, with an air of offended dignity, led the way to the bedroom quarters once more. The worthy housekeeper felt as if her own dignity had, in some sort, been injured by the want of interest Miss Brooke had evinced in the rooms which, at the present moment, she considered the show-rooms of the house. "Shall I send someone to help you unpack?" she asked, a little stiffly, at the door of Loveday's room. "No, thank you. There will not be much unpacking to do. I must leave here by the first up train tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow morning? Why, I have told everyone you will be here at least a fortnight." "Ah, then you must explain that I have been suddenly summoned home by telegram. I'm sure I can trust you to make excuses for me. Do not, however, make them before supper time. I shall like to sit down to that meal with you. I suppose I shall see Stephanie then?" The housekeeper answered in the affirmative, and went her way, wondering over the strange manners of the lady whom, at first, she had been disposed to consider such a nice, pleasant, conversable person. At supper time, however, when the upper servants assembled at what was, to them, the pleasantest meal of the day, a great surprise was to greet them. Stephanie did not take her usual place at table, and a fellow servant, sent to her room to summon her, returned, saying that the room was empty and Stephanie was nowhere to be found. Loveday and Mrs. Williams together went to the girl's bedroom. It bore its usual appearance. No packing had been done in it, and beyond her hat and jacket the girl appeared to have taken nothing away with her. On inquiry, it transpired that Stephanie had, as usual, assisted Lady Cathrow to dress for dinner, but after that not a soul in the house appeared to have seen her. Mrs. Williams thought the matter of sufficient importance to be at once reported to her master and mistress, and Sir George, in his turn, promptly dispatched a messenger to Mr. Bates, at the King's Head, to summon him to an immediate consultation. Loveday dispatched a messenger in another direction, to young Mr. Holt, at his farm, giving him particulars of the girl's disappearance. Mr. Bates had a brief interview with Sir George in his study, from which he emerged radiant. He made a point of seeing Loveday before he left the court, sending a special request to her that she would speak to him for a minute in the outside drive. Loveday put her hat on and went out to him. She found him almost dancing for glee. "Told you so! Told you so! Now didn't I, Miss Brooke?" he exclaimed. "We'll come upon her traces before morning, never fear. I'm quite prepared. I knew what was in her mind all along. I said to myself, when that girl bolts, It will be after she has dressed my lady for dinner, when she has 2 good clear hours all to herself, and her absence from the house won't be noticed, and when, without much difficulty, she can catch a train leaving Huxwell for Wereford. Well, she'll get to Wereford safe enough, but from Wereford she'll be followed every step of the way she goes. Only yesterday I set a man on there, a keen fellow at this sort of thing, and gave him full directions, and he'll hunt her down to her hole properly. Taken nothing with her, you say? What does that matter? She thinks she'll find all she wants where she's going. The feather nest I spoke to you about this morning. Ha ha! Well, instead of stepping into it, as she fancies she will, she'll walk straight into a detective's arms, and land her pal there into the bargain. There'll be 2 of them netted before another 48 hours are over our heads, or my name's not Jeremiah Bates." "What are you going to do now?" asked Loveday, as the man finished his long speech. "Now, I'm back to the King's Head to wait for a telegram from my colleague at Wereford. Once he's got her in front of him, he'll give me instructions at what point to meet him. You see, Huxwell being such an out-of-the-way place, and only one train leaving between 7:30 and 10:15, makes us really positive that Wereford must be the girl's destination, and relieves my mind from all anxiety on the matter." "Does it?" answered Loveday gravely. "I can see another possible destination for the girl, the stream that runs through the wood we drove past this morning. Good night, Mr. Bates. It's cold out here. Of course, as soon as you have any news you'll send it up to Sir George." The household sat up late that night, but no news was received of Stephanie from any quarter. Mr. Bates had impressed upon Sir George the ill-advisability of setting up a hue and cry after the girl that might possibly reach her ears and scare her from joining the person whom he was pleased to designate as her pal. "We want to follow her silently, Sir George, silently as the shadow follows the man," he had said grandiloquently, "and then we shall come upon the 2, and I trust upon the booty also." Sir George, in his turn, had impressed Mr. Bates's wishes upon his household, and, if it had not been for Loveday's message, dispatched early in the evening to young Holt, not a soul outside the house would have known of Stephanie's disappearance. Loveday was stirring early the next morning, and the 8 o'clock train for Wereford numbered her among its passengers. Before starting, she dispatched a telegram to her chief in Lynch Court. It read rather oddly as follows: "Cracker fired. Am just starting for Wereford. Will wire you from there. L.B." Oddly though it might read, Mr. Dyer did not need to refer to his cipher book to interpret it. "Cracker fired" was the easily remembered equivalent for "clue found" in the detective phraseology of the office. "Well, she has been quick enough about it this time," he soliloquized as he speculated in his own mind over what the purport of her next telegram might be. Half an hour later there came to him a constable from Scotland Yard to tell him of Stephanie's disappearance and the conjectures that were rife on the matter, and he then, not unnaturally, read Loveday's telegram by the light of this information, and concluded that the clue in her hands related to the discovery of Stephanie's whereabouts as well as to that of her guilt. A telegram received a little later on, however, was to turn this theory upside down. It was, like the former one, worded in the enigmatic language current in the Lynch Court establishment, but as it was a lengthier and more intricate message, it sent Mr. Dyer at once to his cipher book. "Wonderful! She has cut them all out this time," was Mr. Dyer's exclamation as he read and interpreted the final word. In another 10 minutes he had given over his office to the charge of his head clerk for the day, and was rattling along the streets in a hansom in the direction of Bishopsgate Station. There he was lucky enough to catch a train just starting for Wereford. "The event of the day," he muttered, as he settled himself comfortably in a corner seat, "will be the return journey when she tells me bit by bit how she has worked it all out." It was not until close upon 3 o'clock in the afternoon that he arrived at the old-fashioned market town of Wereford. It chanced to be